Hello. I wanted to do this study concerning, was the Messiah that came the Son of God, or was it God himself? I started studying this because I just asked the Most High one night when my spirit was heavy, what is your truth? What is your truth? Even though I've been studying, I believe I found the true name of the Son of God, and I know the name of the Most High, I still just felt the need to just ask. And I started receiving information. I started receiving information that I felt was coming from the Most High. And this information was telling me that it was Him. Because I believe the New Testament. I believe that someone came. It's like documented in history that even though they called him Christ, we know, Mashiach, Hamashiach, the Messiah in the Hebrew, he came. It's prophesied throughout the Old Testament that someone was going to come. They was going to part his belongings between each other. He was going to ride in on the donkey. You have John, who was prophesied that was going to be crying in the wilderness. I believe the Gospels are true, but I know that things have been taken out, things have been added in. And that would make one just give up completely on the Bible, knowing that, when it was translated and compiled from the scrolls in its original text, things got changed. Things got left. You had the 1611 King James Bible that actually had the Apocrypha or the hidden books in it. And they completely took those out and just gave us the Old Testament, New Testament. You have all the other hidden books, Book of Jasher, Book of Jubilees, Book of Enoch, and all of that the Bible gives reference to, that until, I started researching online, I didn't even know about. But when you put the stories together, you can see that it's the same stories. But when it comes to the New Testament, it's like a lot. You don't really have, like, the Book of Jasher backs up, the Old Testament stories in further detail, and even the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch. But when it comes to the New Testament, you just have those stories. Well, some of the things that I've read, they're different, but they are similar stories. Some of the hidden text, I found that Talmud of Emmanuel that for me confirmed the name that I believed was the Son of God's name because of Isaiah 7:14. But that's like that particular text, and the history behind that. I went into all of that on one of my other videos. The translator, or the people that discovered it, one of them got assassinated. It was written in Aramaic, and just the whole story behind that. And that particular text actually is identical to Matthew. It's different, but it's in the same format as Matthew. And I got the name coming to pass in Matthew 1 and 22 through 23 is why I believe that Emmanuel was the name. And I always believed that it was taken out. Sorry. But then I found that record that actually, instead of having Jesus throughout it, it had Emmanuel, and that confirmed it. And also the Testament of Solomon that actually said the demons feared the name Emmanuel. And well, you have the identical stories, according to the New Testament. So I believe the story, but I can't be naive to think that, it's in its perfect form. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when I started receiving that information from the Most High, even though I believe 100%, if believing in the Son of God, that his name is Emmanuel, according to the Bible. But I started questioning, was Emmanuel the Son of God? Because when I would research the name Emmanuel and I would look in the Strong's Concordance, sometimes I would see Emmanuel was listed as a son of Isaiah. And I would wonder, why is that there? Because, according to the Bible, Isaiah's sons are, Isaiah chapter 7, verse 3, his name is, one of the sons' name is Shear Jashub. And then in chapter 8, Maher-shalal Hashbaz is a son. So you have these names. So why would the Strong Concordance say that Emmanuel was the name of Isaiah? Emmanuel was the son of Isaiah. So that's where I was when I was receiving information to further study Isaiah 7 and 14. So I began to see what I saw when I discovered that Emmanuel was the name of the Son of God according to the New Testament, because it came to pass in Matthew 22 through 23, and you had two names given. You had Jesus, and then you had Emmanuel in Matthew chapter 1. So I had to figure out which one of these names was the original name, because I know Jesus definitely wasn't the name, because it's a Greek name, and according to the Bible, the Messiah or believing the Son of God, he had to be a Hebrew, so he would have a Hebrew name, and Jesus just is a Greek name basically. So I was also believing in the name Yeshaya, because the people I was learning with, showed me that where it says in Matthew chapter 1 verse 21, for he shall save his people from their sins. And they got me to, I understood what they were saying when they said, well, who saves basically a savior. So you get my savior, Yeshaya. Okay, so that's what I believed, that the name was Yeshaya right there. But then when I went into the Hebrew, and even though you have for he shall save his people from their sins, there's no Yeshaya right there in the Hebrew letters. So it's like, it seemed like to me that one would get that off of their own understanding, and it's not like it's not biblical. Like, you can't get Yeshaya right there. The letters aren't there. And actually, when I went to right to verse 22, right after that, now all this was let me actually go to it. Matthew 1 and 22. Matthew 1 and 22. Just one verse down, it says, "Now all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel," which being interpreted is God with us. And I started seeing similarity in verse 21 and verse 23. And I'm questioning, like, all what was done that it might be fulfilled. Everything I was just studying from Matthew 1 and 16 down to 21. The whole it was math that was explaining, basically when the angel came to Joseph in the dream, and was letting him know, basically quoting Isaiah. The angel quoted Isaiah. They just put Jesus there. That's what I was seeing, because now all this was done that it might be fulfilled. So something was being fulfilled here. And so I always remember seeing Emmanuel in the Old Testament. And so I looked it up and I compared, and yes, the prophecy said that his name would be called Emmanuel. So now all this was done that it might be fulfilled meant to me that everything that I'm reading now and about Joseph and Mary and Joseph, understanding the prophecy was coming to pass because the angel quoted it to him in the same wordings, that the name had to be Emmanuel there. But anyway, so according to the New Testament, the name would be Emmanuel. So I was conflicted with two names. Well, actually 3 names. And one of the names just wasn't completely there at all. But you have Jesus, you have Yeshaya, and then you have Emmanuel. I went with the prophecy being fulfilled. So now when I'm getting the information, I'm actually in the same situation in Isaiah 7 and 14 and Isaiah 8 and 1 through 3, because it's the same. When you really study those 2 chapters, it's like it's the same situation. It's the same situation. But you have 2 different names. You have Emmanuel, and then you have Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz. But the same situation. Therefore, Isaiah 7 and 11. Isaiah 7 and 10. Moreover, the Lord spake again unto Ahaz, saying, Ask thee a sign of the Lord thy God. Ask it either in the depth or in the height above. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Lord. And he said, Hear ye now, O house of David. Is it a small thing for you to weary men, but will ye weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Who is that you? The house of David and Ahaz, them at that time. Through their situation, he was going to give them a sign. Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Now, that word virgin don't necessarily mean that it was a woman that hadn't been with a man. It could also mean maiden or damsel or a woman. So, what if that virgin there was not meant to be, but just woman or maiden? So behold, a woman shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. Before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. The Lord shall bring upon thee and upon thy people and upon thy father's house days that have not come, from the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, even the king of Assyria. So, Isaiah chapter 8, starting at verse 1, Moreover, the Lord said unto me, Take thee a great roll, and write in it with a man's pen concerning Maher-shalal-Hash-Baz. And I took unto me faithful witnesses to record Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Jeberechiah. And I went unto the prophetess, and she conceived, and bare a son. Then said the Lord to me, Call his name Maher-shalal-Hash-Baz. For before the child shall have knowledge to cry, My father and my mother, the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria. This is saying the same thing to me. Because when you go to Isaiah 7 and 16, it says, For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. Isaiah 8 and 4, For before the child shall have knowledge to cry, My father and my mother. Both of those are speaking about some type of knowledge or understanding concerning a child. And then when you get to verse 17, Isaiah 7 and 17, it's telling you that he was going to even send the king of Assyria. And then in Isaiah 8 and 4, it says, the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria shall be taken away before the king of Assyria. In Isaiah 7 and 17, Isaiah 7 and 16, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. This is saying the same thing, but the difference is you have two different names. You have Emmanuel as the name given as the sign, and then you have the name Maher-shalal-Hash-Baz. But then, when you read Isaiah 8 and 8, it gives reference to the name Emmanuel, that means God with us. And he shall pass through Judah. He shall overflow and go over. He shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land. oh, God is with us. Because it's not supposed to be the name Emmanuel there, because in the Hebrew, the letters are separate. It's Immanuel, which is with us, and Allah is God. That's how it is. It's not together as a name as in Isaiah 7:14. The letters are together in 7:14, which makes it a name. And when it's separate, it's just saying God is with us. That's the sign. The sun would be the sign. His name would be a reminder to them that God, even though the land is going through days that, have not been, according to Isaiah 7:17, that God is still with them. And when you read Isaiah 8:10, it says, take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. And it's the same wording in the Hebrew, Immanuel, with us, Allah, God, separate. And when you read Isaiah 8:18, behold, I and the children whom the Lord hath given me are for signs and for wonders in Israel from the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth in Mount Zion. Isaiah said that his sons were given for signs. And guess what? They keep saying God with us after they give the name of Maher-shalal-hash-baz. So the name that's supposed to be there is. So with this study and understanding, God with us is just meaning like God is with them through that time. He was a reminder. His name was a reminder. It's not meaning like God is with us in the flesh as it would mean for the Son of God. God is with us. Who? Them. And that's why when I read Isaiah 9:6, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. And then you have a colon, and then, but I want to stop there. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. And when you look at like a study Bible, this particular verse is linked to Isaiah 7:14. So that us is Ahaz them, Isaiah them, the people of that time that were going to be going through those days. That's talking about Emmanuel. But I have to wonder with these words after this colon, was this added to further along push the virgin birth? Because if Emmanuel is Isaiah's son and was meant for a sign during that time, and the reason why they even mention him going into the prophetess and her bearing a son, and the Lord telling them to call his name. Call his name what? Why would it be the same situation when you study it and then two different names? He said call his name Emmanuel. That was a sign for their time, for their situation. That's what it was. So I have to wonder if these other words were added there to push the virgin birth. Because virgin there, to me, I'm seeing originally was just woman. Was just maiden or damsel. Just a woman. Not someone who haven't been with a man. Because Isaiah had already had a child. what's his name? Shear-Jashub. So I had to come to the conclusion with myself not to be so naive to think that those that translated the Hebrew records didn't change stuff, take out or add stuff, because they completely added Jesus, God instead of Yahweh, the real name. I mean God instead of Allah, and the Lord instead of Yahweh, the real name. So it's like when I read Isaiah 7 and 9 and 6 and see after the colon, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Either that was added there, or it's saying something else besides what one that believe that Isaiah 7:14 is concerning the Son of God. It's meaning something else. It says his name shall be called. Could it be just the name, what the name means, Emmanuel, as far as God is with us? Like, not speaking of the person that holds the name, but what the name means. God is with us. Because when you read Isaiah 8 and 8, it says, and he shall pass through Judah, he shall overflow and go over. He shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land. O God is with us. Oh, God is with us. That's talking about God doing that. That's why they said, oh, God is with us. But one would say, oh, that's Jesus. I'm not seeing that no more. I did. But if I'm right, and Emmanuel is actually Isaiah's son, then that is just talking about God. Oh, God is with us. Then verse 10, take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. Every time they look at that little boy with that name, he's just representing a sign that God is with them. Not saying that he's God in the flesh, or he's God, and that he's going to be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Not the boy himself, but that God is with them. God is with them. The name bears God's remembrance. Like, that even though, they're going through things, that they're good. God's with them. Isaiah 9 and 7, of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David, and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. If you're seeing that this son and this child that was given to them for a sign is connected to the virgin birth, or is God in the flesh, then this was written to do that. Add it in there. Because when you read Matthew 1 and 23, and it quotes Isaiah 7 and 14, they give you the meaning on what the name means. Somebody did that. They didn't have to do that. They knew what the name meant. It was in Hebrew. They knew what it meant. They knew that, the translator did that. Let me go to it. Matthew 1 and 23. Whoa. What's going on here? Okay, Matthew 1 and 23. Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel. It should have stopped right there. That was the prophecy. Which being interpreted is God with us. Who did that? Who wrote that? You see what I'm saying? Even in verse 21. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Emmanuel. And then it has a colon. For he shall save his people from their sins. It should have just stopped at Emmanuel. For he shall save his people from their sins. Unless the angel was adding that as something extra. If he was quoting the prophecy, it should have just stopped there. Or who said that? Unless the angel straight up was telling him, which is what I think, and she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Emmanuel. That's what the angel told him. That's why when he woke up, they called his name Emmanuel. That's what's supposed to be there according to the New Testament. They're them trying to show the prophecy coming to pass, according to verse 22. Now all this was done that it might be fulfilled, because the angel had just told him to call his name Emmanuel. But the fact that they have the colon and more to it, and the fact that verse 23 have, which being interpreted is God with us, shows me that they can do that. They did that throughout the Bible, not just here. So who's to say that didn't happen in Isaiah 9 and 6 and 7? To push along the virgin birth, because Isaiah 7 and 14 is one of the key verses is showing that to bringing about Mary and Joseph and the virgin birth. That's one of the key, that was the prophecy concerning the virgin birth. And some people say Genesis 3 and 15, I believe, is another prophecy concerning the virgin birth. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, and it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Now, to me, when I studied that, I thought it was actually Jacob and Esau connected to them, because this it shall bruise thy head and thou shalt bruise his heel, and when you read the Old Testament, the things concerning Esau in the end, and just I thought that was connected to Esau, the Edomites and the Israelites in some way, because whenever Jacob grabbed Esau's heel, let me find that, in Genesis 25 and 26, it says, and after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. Let me just start at Genesis 25 and 25. And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel. But before that, it tells you that they were fighting in there or something, because it says Genesis 25 and 22, and the children struggled together within her. And she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. I want to go to the Strong's Concordance on that, because I want to see what struggle is meaning there. Let me go to that. Genesis 25 and 25. Oh no, Genesis 25 and 22. Okay. Let me see. Struggle to crack in pieces, literally or figuratively. Break, bruise, crush, discourage, oppress, struggle together. So what, they were fighting, or they was kicking each other, or what was going on up in there? It wasn't peaceful up in there. And then when Esau came out, Jacob, and then look, if Esau was on top, because Jacob was holding his heel when he came out, then that means that Esau must have been bruising his head, right? And if Jacob had hold of his heel, then he must have been, bruising the heel, right? So that's why I think that's what it is originally. But people say that, that's when it says seed, it's saying that it's kind of going back to, how Mary, didn't need a man to have, a baby, basically. So it's saying her seed, so it represents the Son of God. But anyway, so Isaiah 7 and 14 was a key prophecy concerning a virgin birth. So if Emmanuel is actually Isaiah's son, and virgin there actually just means woman or maiden, damsel, not necessarily someone who haven't been with a man, but it's actually in reference to the prophetess given right in the next chapter that actually says God is with us, and God is with us, giving reference to what the name means, which is giving reference to the name. Then guess what? Some will probably say it's a dual prophecy and all that. But I'm just seeing this going with one thing, one situation, and Mary and Joseph is not included in that. So when you go to Isaiah 9 and 6 and 7, that child, that son, is referring to Isaiah's son, Emmanuel. And either the rest saying his name shall be called, not him, but his name shall be called. Let me go to it. Isaiah 9 and 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful. His name, not him, shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. His name. And the government shall be upon his shoulder. Of course they would have probably heard about the sign and would try to, take that hope away from them. Or take that, because they wasn't fearing no more. You see in Isaiah 8 and 10, it says, take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. That's how they was feeling after Emmanuel came. So, of course, yeah, I can see the government being upon his shoulder. But when it goes into of the increase of his government, and peace, there shall be no end. That's either talking about the name, God, but not that son, not him. Upon the throne of David. See, and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. That still could be talking about God anyway. That still could be talking about God. Or it could be easily added to push for this Mary and Joseph virgin birth thing. Honestly. The name, not the child, is what I'm seeing here. Now, just because I'm starting to see that perhaps the Messiah didn't come through a virgin birth. The Messiah didn't come through Mary and Joseph. I had to realize that you can't limit the Most High. He can do what he want, how he want. He can manifest what he want. I had to repent of limiting the Most High to his throne. I used to say, do the Most High leave his throne? He had people to act on his behalf. He don't even have to leave his throne. But yeah, he can leave his throne if he wants to. And I believe he have now. Seeing, the information I was getting whenever I asked him what his truth was, he was showing me, yes, he leaves his throne. What king sits on his throne 24/7, and never leaves? Who does that? What king does that? Yes, so I was getting, to study Isaiah 7:14 and Isaiah 8, studying, the name Emmanuel. And also I was getting information that not to limit the Most High to his throne, as I was doing. Like, when in Genesis 18, when you really study that chapter, and it's deep, the 3 angels, or the 3 men that came to Abraham, one of those men, Abraham was calling Yahweh. He was calling him Yahweh. And he was saying, and this particular man was saying things like Abraham was pleading with this particular man or being to spare to spare the good in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And he was responding as only the Most High would, it seemed to me. And he read Sarah's mind. Sarah was thinking within herself, laughing within herself when he said that she was going to have a child. And when he questioned her about it, and she was like, I didn't say that. And he said, oh, but you did say that. And you are going to have a child, because he said he's going to come back and visit her. And she was going to have a child. Let me go to that real quick. But I believe that was God in his human form. That was him. He came too. He came with two of his. He sent. Because one of the men out of three that came to visit Abraham that day, one of them sent the other two to those cities to destroy it. He sent them. Now, Abraham was also calling the one that stayed behind with him. He was calling him Yahweh, and he was calling him Adonijah or Adonai. And that's a proper name of God only. And the other two, when they went and met up with Lot was calling them Adawan. He never called those other two angels Yahweh. He never called them Adonijah or Adonai. He never called those two those names. He only called them like Adawan, the name for like master or ruler. Master, just the normal Lord name that even the wives would call the husbands. That's what Lot was calling those two. But the one that stayed behind that sent those two to those cities to destroy it, Abraham was calling him Yahweh. He was calling him the Most High's name. Why would the Most High let anybody call anybody else by his name? Even though he sent people in his name, they still had their own name. Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. They still had their own name. Like, why would he let somebody call somebody else in his the Most High power name? Like, that's sticking out to me. Let me go to Genesis 18. I just want to read what he said to Sarah. Genesis 18:10. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. In the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age. And it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure? My Lord, being old also. Actually, and she said Adawan. And the Lord, and actually that word, the Lord, is Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? He repeated what she said. Is anything too hard for Yahweh? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not. For she was afraid. And he said, nay, but thou didst laugh. And the men rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom. And Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And Yahweh said, shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. Let me just skip down. And it says, verse 20. And Yahweh said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me. And if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence and went toward Sodom. And Abraham stood yet before Yahweh. Why isn't this person being called Gabriel or why is this person being called Yahweh? And Abraham drew near and said, wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Thou. Who? So whenever you keep reading this, Abraham is pleading to Yahweh about sparing the righteous in those cities. And he's scared to even ask. Because in verse 30, Genesis 18 and 30, and he said unto him, oh, let not Yahweh be angry, and I will speak. Okay. Pre-adventure, there shall 30 be found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. This person is talking like Yahweh. Now, I believe that the Messiah came. My thing is, was the Messiah the Son of God, or was it God himself? I don't believe that the Messiah had anything to do with Emmanuel, because I'm seeing that Emmanuel is actually Isaiah's son. So that's something totally different. Now, this particular situation with or this conversation with Abraham and Yahweh it reminded me of when in the New Testament, when the Messiah, I'm going to call him Messiah because I believe in that spirit. I just don't believe what it's telling me who it is, the Son of God. And of course, Christ is anointed, or the Greek word for Messiah. So I'm just saying Messiah. Mashiach in the Hebrew. Hamashiach. Okay. I'm going with that. Because that spirit, I believe, came. Because this spirit, I believe, gave reference to Genesis 18. This conversation between Yahweh and Abraham. Let me go to it. Let me go to it. 1 second. Okay, John 8 and 56. Okay. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. Then said the Jews unto him, thou art not yet 50 years old, and hast thou seen Abraham? And I'm just going to read what it says. Jesus said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was I am. Then took they up stones to cast at him. But Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by. So, your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. And then he said he was the I am, which he must have said Ahia. Before Abraham was Ahia. And so they wanted to stone him because he must have said that he was Ahia, basically. And guess what? Exodus 3 and 14 through 15 give reference to Ahia and Yahweh. So this actually made me think of Genesis 18. That was him. He was telling them, but they basically said that he didn't look old. How does the Most High look in his human form? You know what I'm saying? He can look how you want to look. That's what I'm thinking. Cause sometimes you can read in Hebrew records that he's so bright that you can't even look at him. You know. But then, you know, he's been described as having woolly hair. You know. So it's like you can't limit him. I believe that he said that I believe that this and I believe that the Messiah should be there, because they was waiting on the Messiah, and that's just what, you know, these different names, I just believe that he was probably just being called the Messiah. And according to the Old Testament, it's only one Savior. It's only one that saves, and that's Yahweh. Which brings me to 1 Timothy. Let me see. 1 Timothy chapter 3. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16. And without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifest in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into glory. This verse makes me just confirm what I'm saying, that yes, God came to earth. The Messiah was God in his human form. He can do what he want. You know, he can change himself how he want. Even the angels have way to turn to different forms and things. They can be spirit one minute and they can be flesh the next. They can have children, you know. So the suffering servant, the Messiah, you know, had to have been the Most High. That's why a lot of times when you read the New Testament, when the Messiah was saying, you know, those who have seen me have seen the Father. And saying things like he was the Alpha and the Omega. Saying things, the forgiving sins. And things like that. Saying things that only the Most High have power to say. Were these people saying that, or wanting to stone him and things because he was doing and saying things and showing himself to be God or the Son of God. It tell you in Daniel 9 that, let me go to it, Daniel 9 and 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that the determined shall be poured upon the desolate. But anyway, he was coming to confirm the covenant. What covenant? It had to be in the new covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. Isn't that what the Messiah was shown to do in the Gospels? He was changing, like he fulfilled the sacrificial law, so that you don't have to sacrifice animals anymore. You repent, and his blood and his sacrifice, instead of being cleansed by the blood of the animals, you cleanse through his blood, his sacrifice. And changing, he changed, instead of, people being able to stone people and kill people for sin, that people still had a chance to repent. Like he would bring the judgment. Like people now have a chance to repent and change. That's why, he didn't let them stone Mary. He who was without sin cast the first stone. They couldn't even do it. Nobody. But anyway, Daniel prophesied of the Messiah. Daniel 9 and 25. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the Prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with the flood, and until the end of the war desolations are determined. Somebody was prophesying, or somebody was warning people to flee whenever they seen the armies in the city, because those people fled around 68 AD into Pella, into the city of Pella, and were telling people there that their master warned them to get out before the siege of 70 AD. Those people are recorded to be Christians or followers of Christ, followers of the Messiah, known as Christians. You have Roman historians, or a particular Roman historian that documented that Christ, the leader of the Christians, actually was crucified by one of their own, Pontius Pilate. It's documented by a Roman historian. So the Messiah came. He rode in on that donkey. He healed those thousands and thousands of people. Probably more than that. They spread that word throughout the earth. He came. But is it who they told us it was in the record? The Son of God, or was it God? Where does the story begin if we don't need the virgin birth? Yes, it was said that the king that was promised to sit, that would have the everlasting kingdom through David, because of the sins of the Israelites, the Most High made it be, no more kings. But it seemed like the Most High put himself, like, okay, because he was originally, the people wanted a king in the land, but he was originally the king anyway. They just wanted a king like everybody else did in the land. And that's why, he anointed King Saul. But really and truly, he was the king anyway. So when he decided not to make no more kings come through, or even let a king come through Judah, then perhaps he just decided to just rule in his human form somehow or something. That's probably why we're going to have a whole new heaven and a whole new earth. That's going to be as one. They said we're going to worship the Most High anyway as one in the new kingdom. And he's actually going to give us the morning star to make us shine bright like him and the angels. According to hold on. According to Revelation 2:28. Yeah. So that's where I'm at so far. I believe in the Messiah. I believe the Messiah came. I believe that Messiah was God. I believe the things that were recorded in the Gospels concerning the Messiah is true, as far as I haven't found anything that would lead me to believe that the disciples or that the apostles wasn't, I haven't found anything against them. So I still believe that, he had his 12 apostles. Mary and Joseph, I'm starting to see, is not a part of the original gospel. I believe it may have started with John, because it gives reference to, his beginning, as far as, his Elizabeth and, them, it gives part of his story. I believe when he showed up, when John was preaching and baptizing, and he just showed up, I believe that may have been when he came down, because he just showed up to Abraham one day. I believe he just showed up to John one day. can't limit the Most High to just heaven when it tells you that he would come down and speak to Moses and things like that. But one who believed in the Son of God would believe he was the image. He was the one acting on his behalf. But honestly, I'm starting to believe that it was just him. Even in the garden with Adam and Eve, it was him walking in the garden. It was him. And the powers that be gave us. When you wake up in the truth and you find out the spirit, the image that they give you for Jesus is Caesar Borgia, and you discover the truth behind the name Jesus and all of that, and then you discover the biblical description of the Messiah, and then you come into these truths by the truth by studying, and then you still got to keep studying, because even though you feel like you have the truth, you got to seek it from the Most High, and that's what I'm doing. I'm seeking it from the Most High, because I know that things have been taken out, things have been added in the Bible, even in the Old Testament. You can't be naive to think that it hasn't. So, it just seemed like a bunch of traps was set up, I feel, to get you to, worship, not to be able to call on your real God. Now you got to go, basically you got to believe on somebody else, and believe in them when it was actually him all along, and they just replaced God with Son of God and changed words around whenever he was saying, he was the Father in the flesh, but he was saying, but they changed the words to say, I'm, me and the Father are one, and things like that. Because if where do you get the virgin birth from then? If you can't depend on Isaiah 7:14 or Genesis 3. Where can you get the where do you get the virgin birth? Where do you get Son of God? Yeah, it's mentioned as someone being called, or he shall call himself Son of the Father in wisdom in the Apocrypha. But from what I'm told, the whole second Esdras is not even considered scriptures, but considered came after or something. People are saying that second Esdras or second Ezra and the Apocrypha isn't even real. So how do you know that that it didn't originally say that he called himself God? Let me go to that, matter of fact. Wisdom. Let me go to Wisdom. I think it's Wisdom chapter 2. Wisdom of Solomon, I believe chapter 2. Let's see. Okay, so Wisdom chapter 2 verse. Ooh, let me read this. Wisdom 2 and let me start at verse Wisdom 2 and 12. Start there. Therefore let us lie in wait for the righteous, because he is not for our turn, and he is clean contrary to our doings. He upbraideth us with our offending the law, and objecteth to our infamy the transgressings of our education. He professeth to have the knowledge of God, and he calleth himself the child of the Lord. What if that said, and he calleth himself the Lord instead of the child? Because if second Ezra or second Esdras is completely well, not real, basically, then who's to say that they didn't add just the child there? He was made to reprove our thoughts. He is grievous unto us he is grievous unto us even to behold, for his life is not like other men's. His ways are of another fashion. We are esteemed of him as counterfeits. He abstaineth from our ways as from filthiness. He pronounceth the end of the just to be blessed, and maketh his boast that God is his Father. Or did he make his boast that he was the Father? Let us see if his words be true, and let us prove what shall happen in the end of him. Because they perceive in him to be human, just like them. They don't believe him, even though he's doing these miracles, forgiving sin and raising the dead, and just doing all kind of miracles that only God have the power to do. They didn't believe him. For if the just man be the Son of God, or if the just man be God, he will help him and deliver him from the hand of his enemies. What if it said, for if the just man be God, he will help him and deliver himself from the hand of his enemies? What if it said that? Let us examine him with despitefulness and torture, that we may know his meekness and prove his patience. Let us condemn him with the shameful death, for by his own saying he shall be respected. Such things they did imagine, and were deceived, for their own wickedness hath blinded them. As for the mysteries of God, they knew them not, neither hope they for the wages of righteousness, nor discerned a reward for blameless souls. For God created man to be mortal, and made him to be an image of his own eternity. Nevertheless, through envy of the devil came death into the world, and they that do hold of his side do find it. I'm just saying. When I'm reading now, it's just like how can I not see that they changed it from God to Son of God? My key was Isaiah 7:14 to prove the name, to prove the virgin birth happened, to prove, it coming to pass in the New Testament, to, protect to protect the New Testament, because people are just saying that's just written by the Pisces and all that. So, if they changed stuff around and added things, even in the Apocrypha that was translated, some just completely give up on the Bible. Some don't believe the New Testament at all. Some are still waiting on the Messiah because they don't believe the New Testament. Some people don't believe the Old Testament, or don't believe the Old Testament is, relevant anymore, basically. So But me, I believe the I believe in the Old Testament. I believe in the Gospels of the New Testament. I believe in the Messiah. I believe the Messiah came. I believe the Messiah will return. I just believe the Messiah was God.